Started. So welcome to everyone that's joined us to our virtual information session for foster care with life without barriers in Tasmania. We are hoping to just share a bit of general information about what foster care is and what it entails, and just give you lots of opportunities to ask us questions. So anything that you have always wondered or you've been thinking about with regards to foster care, now is a really good time to ask. So we do have the chat box there, so just ask if you could enter your questions into the chat box. I'll take note of them. So just like to introduce myself first. My name is Megan Bourne and I'm one of the trainers and assessors here in southern Tasmania. We do also have trainers and assessors in the north and northwest as well, and their contact details are on the screen. So with me here, I also have Katie. So she is our carer ambassador, and I will allow her to introduce herself.
Thank you, Megan. Lovely. Nice to see you all, but not really see you all. But it'll be lovely to hopefully hear from you throughout the session. So my name's Katie, and our family have been fostering for about 17 years. And yeah, we have had an incredible journey through fostering, you know, ups and downs and swings and roundabouts, but we're still there. And Greg and I have 6 biological children and currently 1 little person in care. But I think over the years, we've fostered over 60 children, some really short term, some really long term. But yeah, look, I'm really passionate about fostering, and I love hanging out with these guys because they're super supportive, and you can ask me basically anything and I won't lie to you.
So feel free, like I said, if you have any questions for Katie as well, to pop them in the chat box, and we'll make sure she answers them. And just before we hop over to Anna, I'm actually going to just stop sharing my screen so you can see us a little bit clearer. I will pop this page back up at the end of our presentation. So if you're wanting to copy down any email addresses or mobile numbers for any of the assessors, you can do so. Otherwise, I can also share more information with you later. So there we go. And then we have Anna, who is our program manager. Anna, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Anna Wyatt. I'm the program manager for Life Without Barriers in Tasmania. And as Megan pointed out, we are across the state and have local staff in each region that can provide one-on-one support. But I also would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we meet today, and the Palawa people where I'm sitting, that are the Penal people, and pay my respect to the elders past and present, as well as to the emerging leaders for the tribes that are still around. Otherwise, we're carrying in our heart the ones that are not with us anymore due to the results of colonizations.
Thank you, Anna. So Anna oversees our entire out-of-home care program for Tasmania. So she is the resident expert in things out-of-home care. So she will also be available for answering your questions. So like I said, any questions that you do have, doesn't matter what they are, feel free to ask them into the chat box and we'll do our best to answer them tonight. Or if we're unable to answer them tonight, we'll do our best to contact you later as well. So just to give you a basic outline about who we are at Life Without Barriers. Actually, I haven't introduced myself, have I? My name's Megan. I'm a carer assessor here in Hobart. I've been working with Life Without Barriers for 5 years. Life Without Barriers started with humble beginnings. So it was started by a group of parents in Newcastle who were having trouble accessing support for their own children who had disabilities, and they decided that in order to gain the support that they really needed, that they would start their own not-for-profit. That not-for-profit has grown to a very large national organisation, which covers all kinds of areas from disability support to migrant resources, to mental health, to youth support, and now also to out-of-home care, which is who you're talking to today. So we are the largest provider of out-of-home care in Australia. In Tasmania at the moment, we are supporting 1,416 children. That includes in foster care, residential care, and also kinship care. So kinship care is where they're being cared for by a family member or extremely close relative or friends of the family as well. So just moving on from there, the reasons why children might come into care is a question that a lot of people ask me. So one of the main reasons that we see is neglect. And that usually comes in many forms that can just include deprivation of everyday needs. And that can have some fairly large consequences for the children. We also see emotional abuse as well, physical abuse, and then to a much lesser extent, sexual abuse and other things. So the most common area that we see is neglect. That's what we're dealing with. The other question that I also receive a lot is, what kind of ages do we see children coming into care? So I don't know if you've ever thought of a particular age that you might be interested in providing care for. That is something that we can certainly talk to you about. But the vast majority of children, 70% in fact, of our current kids in care are between the ages of 5 and 14. So that is definitely where the greatest need is at present. One of the things that we do spend a lot of time discussing is how we might match a child with a family and how that works. And I thought perhaps Katie could start us off with talking about that and share with us her experience of matching and how that's worked for her and her family.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. I'd love to. It is, look, it's a tricky thing. There are a lot of kids in care, as Megan said, and we always need new carers to come on board because the matching process is so important. The more carers we have, the more closely, we can align the right children who need care with the right family. So for us, I can say most of the time it's worked. So our family have gone through stages of just being able to provide care for one child. At one stage, we certainly felt that we could open our home to sibling groups. So Life Without Barriers will always try and keep sibling groups together if they can. It's a really important thing, but there aren't a lot of families that can provide foster care to big sibling groups. But we have had a lot of different experiences over the years, and we have found that that we are not the right carers for every child that's come into our care. And so there have been placements, that haven't worked out. But generally, you will, undergo the training, which Megan and Anna will talk about later, and there'll be an assessment, which is a really important part of the process. But through that process, Life Without Barriers can gauge, and you can have a better understanding of what type of care you can provide and for how many children and what ages they might be. So the matching process is super important, but it's something you sort of will learn a lot more about what's right for your family and who your family is right for.
So, I mean, if you're thinking about what is it exactly that is required to be a foster carer, the two main things that are most important to start with is you have to be over the age of 18 and you need to have a spare bedroom. They're 2 points that are really important. And obviously, if any of those are an issue, we are happy to discuss them, but that is something that's really important. We find that the spare bedroom is essential because even in a situation where perhaps siblings in care might want to share a bedroom, they do actually all need space of their own where they can go. Another question that comes up frequently is a question about children in care spending time with their birth families, which is something that we discuss a lot. And I'm hoping that Anna might be able to contribute to that, please.
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, I think especially if you're new in that world, people are a bit scared of the birth family and think, oh my gosh, they must be horrible people, their children are in care. But research shows that it's really important for the child to be still involved with the birth family and for the family to take still part in that life of the child. So we are certainly a family involved organization. However, of course, it must be safe, and the birth family contact as such is under the authority of Child Safety Services. So they working with the birth parents while we don't work with a family. However, of course, as you can imagine, for every child, it is good to experience that a carer and the birth family can get along, and if they see each other, you might drive them to a park to have some contact with mom and dad that might be supervised by child safety. It's good to have a good friendly relationship. That can be tricky, absolutely, because yes, these families have problems, but it is so rewarding if you come to a point where you can help actually these parents to actually get maybe the care of their children back. And I'm not sure, Katie, you have worked a little bit with reunifications in that space. If you want to share a little bit of the up and downs in that relationship.
Yeah, definitely. I could probably talk for hours, Anna, but no one wants to hear me talk for hours. But yeah, look, we have had lots of experience with both, with both outcomes for a child. So that's right. As Anna said, it's really important that the children spend time with their families. That's where they come from, and that's where they need to identify, no matter what happens, in their foster caring journey. So that's always the aim. Sometimes, it doesn't work out as Anna said. So, things happen. We all know sort of what a tough time it is at the moment, and families are struggling. And sometimes, that journey just doesn't end up being with the kids going home. There are lots of different types of care that you can provide, and I'm sure Megan and Anna will address those a little bit later. So primary care is something that we're doing at the moment, and the little person that's with us will stay with us not until she's 18, because we hope she stays with us until, forever, until she's ready. It's wonderfully rewarding seeing a child go home to their birth family. It is, one of the most, just important things that we've actually achieved, like in the whole time that we've been fostering, is seeing a little person go back to their families and that healing to happen, and that, just the joy and the celebration that it is for a little person and their birth family to be together again. If anyone's got any questions, obviously you can let me know. There's a lot more to it, but it's each situation is just so completely unique, and that's that's part of the journey.
Just as a reminder, anytime you're more than welcome to pop a question into the chat box as well, so that we know kind of information that you want to know, and we can tailor the questions that we're answering to you. So feel free to pop them in there. Another question that I do often hear is about how we provide appropriate care to Aboriginal children who might be in foster care. And it's really important to acknowledge at the moment that there is a horrible misbalance in the proportion of Aboriginal children that are in foster care. We are definitely on the lookout for Aboriginal carers. That's very important, because we do seek to place children in care in line with the Aboriginal placement principles, and we are looking to match children within their communities. The other thing that children who identify as Aboriginal have is a cultural support plan, and we do have Aboriginal staff who work with the child and their family to put that together and to make sure that we ensure children are connected with their culture and their community and also their land. So I'm just seeing a question there about age. There actually isn't an age limit. So we assess, as long as you're over 18, we assess people any age above that. It's just really important to note that we have a duty of care to make sure that anything that you do with us is not going to threaten your health. So part of the assessment process does involve a medical form that we ask your GP to complete on your behalf. And it just checks to make sure that any of the activities that you might do as a foster carer, anything that might be involved in caring for a child, isn't going to put you in any harm's way. So one of the examples that I use is if you happen to be somebody who has arthritis or a back injury, when we're discussing the ages of children, we wouldn't match you with a child that requires frequent lifting or assistance into a car, because we don't want to hurt your back or aggravate any injuries further. So it's something to keep in mind, but there's no such thing as too old.
No, we have actually quite the opposite. We have empty nesters, we call them, or people in the community that want to provide that grandparent role, that are very interested in fostering, or sometimes couples before they get their children, their own biological children, are interested. And we're looking for everyone out there, because our children come from a variety of backgrounds. And I saw that somebody just posted a question in regards to the age of the own biological children that you may have. And what we trying to do is to match the children with your family that are not at the same age of your biological children. So we're trying to do, about 2 years below, 2 years above. It's a bit it's a little bit really process that we do together with you, and also with child safety, to make sure that your own biological children are not impacted by that.
Absolutely.
And if we are keen to, for everyone who is working with us on, trying to keep siblings together and not to separate siblings, that is fantastic. But of course, the situation is often the way that you don't have 5 bedrooms in your house. However, we're trying to continue that sibling contact, because that's the one constant that you can guarantee, that the siblings have contact, while that is sometimes trickier with parents or other family.
That's right. Another question is about pets. Pets are fantastic and children love them. They're actually a really, really great way for children to connect, especially if they're feeling a bit overwhelmed with humans in their world. It does require a bit of an assessment, which is simply just a matter of us spending time in your home and getting to know your pet as well as we get to know you. It's one of those things that we just keep in mind. We absolutely wouldn't match a child who is terrified of dogs with a house that had a dog in it. That also goes for children that perhaps may have had a history where they might have harmed an animal. It's something that we keep in mind. But animals in the home is definitely a fantastic thing when you're a foster carer, so we encourage it. Yes. There's also a question about being employed. Absolutely, if you're working full-time, that's not a problem at all. We have foster carers from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all occupations. And it's something that we just need to take into account. So as we get to know you through the assessment process, and I'll talk about what that involves in just a second, we will talk to you about what the most appropriate match is going to look like, and we'll work with you as far as what will work best for your household, what will work best for your occupation, and also your future and where you want to go with that too. There's lots of things to take into account when you're fostering a child. It does require a certain level of flexibility, but everyone's household looks different, but also every child in foster care has a different need. So there's nothing like that would ever exclude you. It's just something that we keep talking about. So just to go back to what are the steps, what's required to be a foster carer? There are a few steps involved, and it can be a fairly lengthy process, but you've taken the first step in attending tonight, so thank you very much. And hopefully over the coming days, we might have some further contact with you just to introduce ourselves and talk to you about where you could go from here. But after you make the initial inquiry, we then come to you and meet you face to face in your home. And that's a really great time for you to sort of show us your home. And if you have any concerns about spaces or anything in your home and appropriateness for children, we can have a talk to you about that then. After that, we then ask you to complete an application, and we explain to you what our checks are and what that involves. So we do have to do probity checks, and that involves a police check, a child safety check, and we require you to have a Working with Vulnerable People card. Those checks can take a little bit of time. There's paperwork involved, and it also requires departments to process them. So it requires a little bit of time for that to go through, but once they come back, you're then able to attend our Shared Lives training. Our Shared Lives is fantastic. It's run by the assessors around the state, It's 2 full days, but we run it in different formats depending on the availability of everyone. So sometimes it's on weekdays, sometimes it's on weekends. It depends on the greatest need at the time. So we're pretty flexible around that. And Shared Lives is a fantastic way to meet other people who are interested in foster care. Katie usually comes, especially to the south, and can answer lots of questions. And we introduce the concept of foster care to you through some stories. So we talk about stories of 4 different children in care, what that looks like, and we discuss examples around that. We also cover things like trauma and other facets of developmental trauma that involve children in care. So the Shared Lives training is compulsory, but it's really, really fun. After Shared Lives, there's some activities that we do need you to do, and that includes that GP check that I was talking about. We also ask you to complete your life story for us, which is where we ask you just to write down some of your life history, just to share a bit of your story with us, and that can be done in lots of different ways, and we can help you with that as well at the time. After all of that is completed, we then start the more formal assessment, which is a series of conversations that we'll conduct in your home. And that will involve your family to a degree, so whoever's in the home with you, your partner, your kids, and the pets if they're there. And after that, we put all the information together in a report, which is presented with the whole lot to Child Safety for approval. Once you're approved, you don't just vanish or stick a child with you. We then talk to you about future training. We have our learning and development program, which we get you started with. And there's lots of fantastic courses available online, which will be available to you, as well as any face-to-face courses we might be running at the same time. We also conduct induction, which is where we talk to you about all the nitty-gritty about getting yourself ready to welcome a child into your home. So it is a fairly lengthy process and quite involved, but it's something that we do walk with you. And we're available every step of the way to answer questions and to support you as you go. How long does all of that take? Well, it depends, because each stage can take a bit of time, and sometimes life happens as well, and that's okay. So we don't actually have a time limit. There's not going to be any problem if you have holidays booked or if you have family events or anything like that. We can work around you, but usually it ends up being around 4 to 5 months in total. That's averaged out. But like I said, we're pretty flexible, and we can work with you through that process as we go. So are there any more questions coming through that I have missed?
I saw there is one in regards, a really interesting one about how to ensure appropriate care for children from a different cultural background or language background. And that is, it's not just children, you know, that identify as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. We also have children from, you know, we're working together with a migrant resource center, because there are many refugees as well not available here, and their children, you know, might come to us. So that is something that is addressed also in the assessment process that Megan discusses. So of course we are interested in people that are open to different cultures and are happy to learn about different cultures, and you're not alone in that. So we there with you, and you will be allocated or, you know, you will hopefully form a good relationship with one of our practitioners who is supporting you, and is always just a phone call away. We also have a 24/7 during the night support after our service that you can contact. But there are resources out there that we hope for carers to use. We have an online learning program. However, we would design the support really based on what the needs of the child is and the family, and work together with you because it's very individual. The same also, we speak with you about your views around children that might identify as, you know, from the LGBTIQ+ community or anything like that, or you might be part of that. So that is, you know, many internal knowledge and resources that we have, and that we also would are open ears of what your experiences are and what you bring to the table there. It's a you know, an open discussion and community, and we certainly standing by your side for that.
Thanks, Anna. That's fantastic. Just on that note, you mentioned our 24-hour on-call line. So it's probably a really good time to talk about what kind of support we offer our foster carers. So the first thing that's really important to note is that we do offer training. We don't expect you to know everything. And we have a fantastic online platform which has a myriad of courses available for you to complete, and you can do that with our support as necessary. We do also offer face-to-face courses run from our offices, which are really fantastic as well. So the 24-hour on-call phone service is something that's really important to acknowledge. It's basically a phone line which is on a rostered system just by our practitioners. Our team is not massive, and over time you'll actually get to know all the practitioners, so it will get to a point where you always know the person answering the phone, which is lovely. And they are there to support you as needed. So that's anything that might happen on a weekend or out of business hours, anything that can't wait until the following business day, even if it's just a debrief. There is also the opportunity for reimbursements as a foster carer. This is not a payment, but it is something that is there to support you and help cover some of the costs that might be incurred in caring for the child. Kitting them out in things that they might need, especially if there's an activity that's going on and they don't actually have something that they need already. So that's something to keep in mind. There's also specialist supports available and our carer support plans. So the practitioners that work with the children and our foster carers also help to support the children to access any specialist care they might need, whether that's psychological care, OT, physio, speech therapy, all of those things are supported to help you access them. There's also respite care for our primary carers, which is another care option as well. So I'll talk about that in a moment. And also our carer network. So we do like our carers to get together. They enjoy it as well at the time. And so we do provide lots of opportunities for carers to get to know each other and to support each other in the process. It's really lovely to have that shared experience. So a question about education. Yes, so education is extremely important for children in care. It's important for all children. That's something that we do discuss in the assessment process. Education is supported in conjunction with the schools and our case managers as well. So all children in care do have an education support plan that is put together at their school. We do like to support continuity in schooling where possible, but we understand that that's not always possible, and that's something that we do talk about quite a bit. But there's a lot of people involved in supporting kids to really be successful in their education, whatever that looks like. And that also involves us supporting carers as well to help them do that. But yes, we talk about attitudes to education quite a lot in the assessment process, and that's something that we can talk to you about further as well. We are an all-inclusive organisation, and we welcome carers from every background and every walk of life. The more diverse we can be, the better service we can offer. All kids are different as well, and we want to make sure that we have as many diverse carers as we can so that we can make the best possible match for kids. So we welcome anyone and everyone, and we would love to talk to you. So there is never any concern about diversity or background, and that is not something that is an issue for us whatsoever. And it certainly would never impact your ability to be approved as a foster carer. There was one other question I was going to ask, and I'm sorry, but it's actually just gone out of my head. So Anna, if it's okay with you, I thought I might ask Katie a question, unless there's something I've missed. Katie, I just wanted to ask you, as far as thinking about the beginning of when you first became a foster carer, what were some of the most important aspects of that? What were the things that you found the most helpful in becoming a foster carer?
It was a pretty, well, it was an exciting time, but it was an anxious time. And I still I still remember it really, really well. And look, we tried to be as prepared as we could, and we had children. We had birth children already. So I guess that sort of element of what the day-to-day caring of a child looks like was, you know, that sort of anxiety was removed. So what was really important was knowing that somebody else was just a phone call away, just thinking, oh, but what if this happens? And actually it did happen. So here comes the story. So literally it was only about our third placement, and we packed up. We had we had two little people in care for a short-term placement. We packed up the bikes and the kids, and it was a weekend, and we went off to a school that had a big park and, you know, lots of area to ride around. So they were riding their bikes around. They all had helmets on and all the safety gear. But one of the little girls, I think she was about 7 or 8, hit a gutter, came off a bike, and chipped one of her teeth. And I was just in panic mode. I was just going, this isn't happening to me. This can't happen. So, you know, just actually getting on the phone, just going, I don't know what to do. We've had cuts and scrapes and no breaks, which is really good. But touch wood. But no, look, I think right at the beginning of the journey, yeah, good to know someone was there. Good to have really good family support. Like that was such an important thing for us. Like, we have a big supportive family. We're Christians, so, you know, we go to church, and we had that sort of community wrapping around us as well. And yeah, I just feel like the other things that were important, I guess, were having everything that you needed on hand. Like when you first start caring, as Megan said, you're not going to be approved and have, you know, a phone call necessarily the next day saying, you know, we're bringing, you know, 3 kids around tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. You have time to be prepared, and it's good to come into it maybe having an idea, you know, what have I got? Have I got a car seat and a cot and a pram and a bassinet? And have I got all of that stuff? Or, you know, are my kids already at school and I've got the knowledge and the know-how to support the education of a child who comes into care? Anyway, I can talk for hours. Answer some questions.
No, that's really good. Actually, there is a question here directly for you, Katie.
Thank you.
About your own biological children.
Yeah, no, there's one
top.
for me before that as well. Okay, I'm going to answer, can you go down a tiny bit? The question about how many kids we keep in touch with. And oh my goodness, this is such a good question. Lots of people ask this question. A lot of the time, it depends on that child. So some of the older children that we've had in care who have left have chosen to reach out to us via social media, or, you know, even just visiting. Like literally Greg's been gardening in the front yard one day, and this car pulled up and this little boy got out. I think he had been with us, again, I think short-term care, but he was about 11 or 12 when he came. So, you know, he knew where he was. He knew where he was living. This was a couple of years later, and the car pulled up and he got out and he said, this is where I used to live. And Greg's like, oh, g'day, mate. How are you going? He's like, oh, g'day, Greg, like just over the front yard. Sometimes it's up to the kids. Sometimes it's up to the parents. You know, I remember a little boy that we had who was happily reunified with his mum and his maternal grandma. He was with us for about 11 months. And I said to the mum once, you know, the reunification process is not short. Like reunification can take, you know, a lengthy period of time, and that's in everybody's best interest, especially the child, which is the way we work. So I asked her once he was reunified, I said, you know, could I bring some Christmas presents out to put under the Christmas tree for him? And she said yes, like that'd be lovely. And I came out and I just stayed for a short time. Leaving was tricky for everybody. And I remember calling another couple of weeks later saying, oh, you know, could we come out and visit again? And she said no. And I said, okay, that's fair, because, you know, that journey was over. And that's okay. So yeah, sometimes, but sorry, quickly. There is a family where a little person was reunified. She came to us when she was born, and she stayed with us for 6 months. And that reunification was, yeah, one of the most rewarding experiences that we've ever had. And the mum and I still message each other 3 years later, and she sends me photos of the little person, and it's super lovely. So long answer to your question.
Thank you. And there's also a question here for you.
Oh, okay, lovely. Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, have you got another hour? Right. So our 4 biological children, all very different, 3 boys and then a girl. We found our middle child. If any of you out there have middle children, you might know what I'm talking about. He found it the hardest because he really likes to have routine. He likes to kind of know, what's happening next. And honestly, sometimes at the start of the journey, it's always been a family, it's always been a team effort, but occasionally, and so we would always ask the kids, what do you think about, taking another little person in care? We've just had a phone call, they're this age, they're that age, and it would be like a family meeting, like we all need to be on board with this. And so that all went so good until sometimes if you're doing emergency care, you might not actually have the opportunity to sit everyone down and say, how about this? And so sometimes the kids would come home from school, the bedrooms are all rearranged, and there's new kids on the block. Some of them coped and some of them didn't cope as well. And we were always trying very hard to be super aware of that. And obviously, like, it's not a joke. You do need to be aware of how your children are coping, and just being vigilant about that, because it's important. You don't want to sacrifice the stability and the balance that you have in your home, but that's not always going to be the case. And there's lots of support around. If you feel like that's happening and someone's coping and someone's not coping, then it's just, each situation is so unique and so individual that you would you would manage that as the journey progressed. I hope I've answered that question.
That's a good question. If you'd like more clarification on your question, feel free to pop that in as well. We can do that. But it's probably a really good moment for me to talk about the types of care. So there are different kinds of care. So there's, I guess, the first more obvious primary carer, which is more long-term. So this would be for kids that are unlikely to be reunified or returned to birth family in a short period of time for whatever reason. And they may actually be most likely to be staying in care indefinitely. So they would be with a carer that's their primary care, and that would be their person that is caring for them long-term, every day. They're part of the family. Katie mentioned emergency carers. So emergency carers would often be providing care for a child with extremely short notice, sometimes no notice. And this is in the emergency situations where something might come up. And we need a home for that child right away. And that can be for anything from 24 hours up to a few weeks at a time. And then we have our respite carers, who are really, really important. So respite carers provide support to our primary carers by providing foster care for a short-term basis. So for perhaps a weekend a month and perhaps a bit extra in the school holidays, ideally for the same child, so a long-term relationship can develop. And it can be a really lovely relationship as well that can happen between primary carers and respite carers, as together they wrap around and support this child together. We provide all different kinds of care, and it's something that we can talk to you about. You can be approved for one or all of the types of care. We do not force anyone to do any particular one, but it is something that we talk to you about. And often it can come down to the kind of care that suits your family and lifestyle at that particular moment. It also doesn't get locked in, so it can change. So as your life changes and as things move on, you might choose to try a different kind of care, and that's something that you can talk to us about, and we can go from there. So there are lots of options. It's not really just about a one-size-fits-all situation, because it doesn't work that way in life. So yeah, there are different kinds of care. It's also important to consider that if you are looking at primary care, we do try and support all our primary carers with respite care. So that is something important to add as well. No, that's fine. If you need to go, absolutely come and go as you need to. We are here, so you can contact us anytime, and we are very happy to keep this conversation going another time if you need us to. You've provided different kinds of care over the years, haven't you, Katie?
Yeah, definitely.
A bit about how that works.
I think all of them. We started with respite care, and then once we, sort of got into not really into the group, but, you know, just didn't, you know, we felt comfortable. We felt comfortable as a family. We, you know, we really enjoyed the training, and we, it took us a long time to be approved carers, actually. Greg and I sort of really took our time with that. I think, you know, maybe even 6 months to a year, we sort of just, you know, took it slowly, and that's, you know, and that was right for our family. But yeah, respite care we've done, emergency care. We've definitely had the phone call the day before the placement, but, you know, that's what emergency care is. And yeah, at the moment we're doing primary care, and sometimes we've had breaks altogether. You know, sometimes we have actually decided, you know, often after a reunification, and you know, that process is time consuming, and you know, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of sort of positivity and a lot of support around the birth family and the child. So yeah, we've definitely had breaks before where we've said no. Like, it's really important to know that you can say no, that you don't have to say yes to every placement that you're offered.
Absolutely. And there is no consequences for ever saying no. So it's something that we actually discuss with you. So we try and make the best match that we possibly can. And when we have approved carers and we think, yep, this match might work really well, and we contact them and let them know a bit about the child, a little bit about what their needs are, and then leave it with the carer to consider it, perhaps talk about it with their family, and come back to us with their answer. And if the answer is no, that is absolutely fine. We encourage everyone to feel powerful to say that. We never want to push anyone to do something that they're not comfortable with, and there is never a consequence for saying no. So that's something that's really important to imagine. Also, it's one of those things to keep in mind, that the very fact that you're stepping forward to say that you want to be a foster carer shows that you're a particular kind of personality that really wants to give and care and share. And it's one of those things where it's actually quite hard to say no sometimes. So we do encourage you to really feel strong about that, and to really understand where your limits and boundaries are, because that means things are going to work quite well for you long term. You're going to be able to really apply the self-care when it's needed. It's very important.
Yeah, and we spoke a little bit about the matching already in the beginning, but it is so important for us to provide you with the information. Sometimes we don't have that much, and for you to really go through it and discuss it and ask more questions to us, or that we can then forward to the department, because we really want the placement to succeed. You can imagine the worst case scenario is that it doesn't fit in with your family, or something goes wrong, and then the placement changes. And that, of course, is difficult for a child to go through. So we're super keen to work together to make sure it is a good match for your family and your kids, as well as for the child that comes into your care. And if you have your own biological children, so we will meet with them as well, and they can ask our assessors all the questions that they might have, and what they, why they are interested to maybe be part of a foster care journey and become a foster sibling. But absolutely, I think we all want the same, the placement to succeed, to avoid that they go from one house to the other.
Absolutely.
So it's important to say no and to ask questions.
Definitely, that's really important. There's a question here about teenagers. There are absolutely teenagers in care that need foster carers. It's one of those things where I think we get a lot of inquiries from people who are interested in really young children, but we have a really, really big need for kids that are older. Like I said, 70% of our kids in care at the moment are between the ages of 5 and 14. Yes, they're absolutely in need. There are teenagers currently in residential care that would actually really love to be matched with a foster family. It's just that the right match hasn't quite happened yet. So if you do feel like you have an interest in providing care for teenagers or kids that are a little bit older, that is absolutely fantastic. And you could really provide a life-changing moment for those kids. So please talk to us about that too.
Yeah, and I think people are always scared about teenagers, but we have some carers that actually, specialize merely in in providing care for teenagers and do heaps of activities. We find that often people want to start with, providing care from 0 till 3 or 0 till 5. That's difficult to match because there's the need is in the bit older children often. But also, I personally, I would much more prefer to have an older child that goes to primary school, that you can, don't have to do the 24/7 and, oh my gosh, what are they doing? Heart attacks that you have as a mom of a young child, and actually do with them, learn some life skills or teach them some life skills and go hiking with them and do these fun things. Caring for teenagers or preteens is where you can get so much rewards from, and you in it together. You can it's so necessary, and they often forgotten because people say, oh, what, the child is 10 now, it's too old for me, and that's sad. It's just a 10-year-old.
Yep, that's absolutely right. And sometimes the reason why they haven't been matched with anyone to that point is just through a horrible situation of circumstances where they may have had a long-term carer that they were already really attached to, who perhaps became unwell. Their carer may have needed to move overseas and they couldn't go with them. There's lots of reasons why a teenager might actually be in need of carers. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have some really horrible or high degree of trauma or big behaviours or anything like that. Sometimes it could just be horrible circumstances. So it's a really important thing to know. Just before we finish up, if there are any last questions to come through, that would be really, really great. Otherwise, I think I've spoken about all my questions. Do you have any frequently asked questions, Anna, that I haven't mentioned yet?
I think the mythbusters are always, that people think because they can't be busted a few myths already, I think. But, yes, you can work, and yes, you can rent your house, or you can own your house, or you can be having your own children, or have never had your own biological children. You can be, retired or single, or in a, de facto relationship, or we had the different cultural background. I always think, the children come from all walks of life, and we need just the diversity around our carers. Yeah, I don't think there are always questions around the home safety check. So we will go to the house and make sure that the children are safe. And there are a few things we provide you, for example, with a fire extinguisher and a fire blanket, because we found that most households don't have that, and we say that's all right. We don't wait until you buy one, we give you one. Or straps for the TV, that it doesn't fall off the wall if you have a one to care for. These kind of things. So we provide also practical support in that regards.
And we're very happy to walk through the home with the home safety check and talk it all through with you. And we don't expect your home to be ready to receive a child from the first day we come to meet you. We expect your house to be lived in, so it doesn't have to be immaculate. And we do talk through the process with you. So it's perfectly okay for you to be in the process of doing some renovations or planning to change something in your yard. That's not a problem at all. It's something that we can talk to you about as we go. So please don't ever feel like you need to present in a certain way for us to come and see you. We are here to answer your questions. We're here to walk with you through the process, and it is a big process, so that's okay. Also, we can be contacted anytime. So I will put back up the slide in a moment, which has my email address and contact details. So you can call me. I work Monday to Thursday and I answer my phone, and I'm always happy to answer anyone's questions at any time. And then there's also Laurie and Kylie as well. So that's a really important thing to know. Katie is really involved in the process as well and comes to Shared Lives training and loves answering questions too. So it's certainly not a process that requires you to feel 100% ready before you call us. Call us when you're interested and have questions. So before we start to sign off, Katie, do you have a last story for us?
Oh, goodness. I don't know where to start, Megan. Where will I start? Well, look, I think I just want to say that, well, thanks for coming. Thanks for listening in, and thanks for just considering to be, a person that, that might change a little person's life. I guess it's not a story, but I just see the journey that some of the kids who have been in our care have been on. And you do change their lives. Like, a story about a little boy who came, we didn't know very much about him. He was about 6 or 7 when he came. And because we're a big family and we have, big sort of family barbecues, or, we have friends over just like normal. And I remember he hadn't been with us for very long, and we were having family over, and we always talked to him, this is what's happening, we're going here, we're going there. Always he wanted to know, he was really anxious and sort of pretty heightened, and he always had to know, where we were going and how long it was going to take and who was going to be there. So anyway, we had people over, and it just got normally noisy. Like, there was nothing going on, just people chatting and laughing, and I could just see him out of the corner of my eye just getting a bit overwhelmed, like just getting a little bit frightened, and he sort of had backed himself into a corner, and I immediately just became aware that he, for whatever reason, he was getting really anxious and he wasn't coping, and so that really provoked me to just always be trying to understand where he might have come from. I didn't know what his situation was, but it was clear that he wasn't coping with that. But we spent lots of good quiet time together, and he he was going to school and he started making friends. He stayed with us for 7 or 8 years, and just the change in him, being able to cope socially, being able to cope at school, being able to maintain relationships with friends, whereas he hadn't been able to have that before. And I just think, if you've been thinking about it for a long time, or this is the first time you've thought about it, it is a sacrifice. And I told you in the beginning that I wouldn't lie, so you can ask me any other questions about that. It can be a tricky journey, but you know what, it is amazing. It's amazing being that one adult that can change the life of a child.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
It's fantastic. So where to from here? If you are interested in talking some more, or you've got some more questions, or you're ready and raring to go, we would love to meet with you. So we'll hopefully be contacting everyone that registered anyway for tonight, but if you are super keen, I'm going to pop up the slide now that will give you our contact details. So I'm just going to pop that up. There it is. So you can see my name is there in the south. I'm Megan. If you're up in the north area, we have Kylie, and in the northwest we have Laurie. But over the next few days, we will be seeking to contact you and just say hi, introduce ourselves, find out if you do have any other questions and where you would like to go from here. So if you are ready and raring to go, that would start with just a meeting at your house, and we would just introduce ourselves to you and possibly provide you with a little bit more information and then go from there. So just one last opportunity for anyone to ask questions if they would like. Just going to check I haven't missed anyone. No.
And I just see that we have some attending that are from the northern area, from Launceston and so on. And Kylie, our care assessor there, she's on leave, so don't be surprised if somebody by the name of Roisin answers the phone, because she is doing the is attending the phone while Kylie is on enjoying her holidays.
That's lovely. We are a state-based team, so occasionally you will hear from one of us who might be in a different region, but we all work together, and that should never be a problem. Okay. I think that's the last of the questions. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us. It's always a real pleasure to talk about one of our favourite topics. We hope that we do get to meet you soon. And please enjoy your night. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for your interest.
Good
Bye.
night. I'm just going to need